Hello and welcome. You're watching WION World is One. This is World DNA. My name is Hemkor Saroya.
And I'm Diksha Bisla. And on the show today, 6 people, including 3 children, were killed after a sightseeing helicopter crashed into the Hudson River in New York after the helicopter broke apart in mid-air. Among those deceased is the pilot and a family from Spain. Of course, we're going to get you all the details on that front.
Also on the show today, Mumbai attack accused Tahawwur Rana has been sent to 18-day NIA custody following his extradition from the United States. The US is pledged to work with India to combat terrorism. We'll be getting you all the details of this on the show as well. But first, a quick look at the headlines.
India's National Investigation Agency takes 18-day custody of Mumbai attacks mastermind Tahawwur Rana. Agency to question Rana in detail to unravel the complete conspiracy behind the 26/11 terror strike.
Six people, including 3 children, killed in New York after a sightseeing helicopter crashes into the Hudson River.
In another US aviation mishap, an American Airlines plane carrying several members of Congress was struck on the taxiway by the wingtip of another jet at Washington's Reagan National Airport. The passengers were safely evacuated.
An important meeting, thanks to you, is going to happen on Saturday for the first time in a long time. There'll be direct talks between Ambassador Woodcock and a top-level leader in Iran.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says Special Envoy Steve Witkoff to lead talks with Iran on Saturday.
Police in Brazil used tear gas to stop protesters as thousands of indigenous people march in capital Brasilia, demanding state guarantee and expand their rights to traditional lands.
Wall Street pulled back overnight with the Dow dropping over 1,000 points as markets gave up gains from the previous session's rally sparked by Trump's tariff pause.
Goalkeeper Andre Onana's errors cost Manchester United a victory. The Red Devils are held to a 2-2 draw by Lyon in the first leg of their Europa League quarter-final.
All right, our top story on World DNA. 6 people, including 3 children, were killed after a sightseeing helicopter crashed into the Hudson River in New York.
The crash killed all those on board the aircraft, the pilot and a family from Spain. A video captured the moment the helicopter broke apart in mid-air and crashed upside down into the river.
Now, another video appeared to show the helicopter having broken up into different parts before hitting the water. Eyewitnesses said that a rotor blade had come loose from the aircraft.
My way to the train station, it was about 3:11, 3:13 we saw an helicopter and like a little lightning that clipped the propeller, and it shattered in the sky. And after it shattered, then we saw the helicopter just spiral, like it just lost control, and it was like going back and forth, and it kept going, and we started screaming because we were like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. It's like, is this for real? You know what I mean? It was just like unbelievable, like this is not happening. And then it just crashed into the water, just like that.
The chopper's landing skids were seen protruding from the river beside a tunnel vent as several boats clustered around the impact site. Now, police from both New York and New Jersey, which is on the opposite side of the river from Manhattan, responded to the scene along with fire department vessels.
The Federal Aviation Administration confirmed that a Bell 206 helicopter crashed and is submerged in the Hudson River in New York City.
New York Mayor Eric Adams said that bodies of all 6 victims were recovered from the water, calling it a heartbreaking and tragic crash.
President Donald Trump called the crash terrible in a post on Truth Social, adding that the footage of the crash was horrendous. As per the authorities, the helicopter had taken off around 3 p.m. It was turning back towards the downtown Manhattan heliport when it lost control and hit the water near a pier.
And for more on this, our correspondent Susan Tehrani has sent us this report from New York. Take a look.
A sightseeing helicopter crashed in New York's Hudson River near Manhattan's Pier 40, killing all 6 people on board, including a family from Spain and the pilot. Eyewitnesses recall a harrowing account where the chopper was seen spinning and then falling right into the Hudson River. Rescue workers immediately went to the scene, but it was too late. Now the FAA and the NTSB are investigating what caused this crash. Susan Tehrani reporting from New York for WION World is One.
And the Russia-Ukraine war is intensifying. Russian forces have launched devastating attacks across Ukraine.
Ukrainian military chief admits the front lines are under pressure. Our next story takes a look at how Kyiv is now rushing much younger recruits with bare minimum training to the battlefield. Take a look.
The night sky over Ukraine is ablaze once again. Explosions ripping through cities, drones swarming like angry wasps, and the thunder of artillery echoing across the front lines. Russian drones attacked the Ukrainian capital of Kyiv and the southern city of Mykolaiv. There is death and devastation. The attacks are relentless.
A Shahed attack was underway, launched by, let's say, not very good Russian people, when one Shahed, the 6th one, fell down here. I think it wasn't shot down, just fallen. Air defense didn't work here. It wasn't shot down, it just hit this building and damaged everything around. Maybe there is something strategic in here.
For nearly a week, Ukrainian forces have reported a dramatic escalation in Russian assaults. General Alexander Syrsky points out the huge disparity between the two sides, pointing out that Moscow can mobilize up to 20 million troops. He wants to add, Ukraine must mobilize 30,000 soldiers every month. Ukrainian military is rapidly deploying fresh troops to bolster its defenses. Many of these reinforcements are young recruits aged 18 to 24 who have undergone expedited training programs. Ukraine is encouraging 18 to 24-year-olds to serve in the military for a year for about $24,000 and hefty bonuses on offer, plus subsidized mortgages and rents. These fresh recruits, aged 18 to 22, are entering the war after only 3 months of basic training. A desperate measure as Russian forces relentlessly pound Ukrainian positions.
I will go through 3-month training, then I will be sent to serve. When this contract is over, I plan to sign it one more time.
You know, it is like comparing TikTok to real life. There is a huge difference. It looks cool and easy on video, but in reality, it is hard. One has to go through it. It is difficult, both mentally and physically.
Despite these efforts, concerns have emerged regarding the preparedness of these young soldiers. Commanders on the Eastern Front have reported that some new recruits lack basic combat skills such as weapon handling and battlefield coordination. There have been several instances where inexperienced soldiers have retreated under fire, contributing to territorial losses in critical areas like Pokrovsk. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Now, US President Donald Trump claims that progress has been made on the return of the hostages in Gaza.
And that he was dealing with both Israel and Hamas. However, he gave no other details about the talks.
Now, this comes as Israel continued to strike targets in Gaza City. The latest strikes came in Shijaya area.
People were in their home safe. Suddenly an F-16 missile was launched at them while they were safe at home. I don't know what Netanyahu means by targets. Are these children targets? Those are civilians who have nothing to do with anything, and you are bombing them with an F-16? Why?
Well, Israel had ordered residents to evacuate last week, saying it planned operations against militants in the area. Now, Israel resumed its bombardment on 18th of March after a 2-month truce. Now, according to Gaza's health ministry, in just 3 weeks, nearly 1,500 Palestinians have been killed.
On Thursday, 10 Palestinian detainees were released by Israel and brought to a hospital in Deir al-Balah by the Red Cross. Rights groups have reported grave abuses of Palestinians in Israeli detention. The military says it is investigating individual cases.
The situation is very difficult. The situation is very difficult. We ask the brothers who are negotiating to do something to release the people in prisons because their situation is very difficult. The situation is very difficult. I mean, thank God we got out with our minds intact after the torment we endured during this period.
Israeli tanks and excavators were seen operating near northern Gaza on a Thursday. Now, since late March, Israel has ordered evacuations around Gaza's borders to create what it calls a security zone. Gazans say it's a move to permanently depopulate these areas. Ceasefire talks remain deadlocked. Qatar, Egypt and the United States continue mediation but have yet to bridge the gap. And in news from Israel, the Israeli military has announced to act against pilots calling for securing the return of hostages even at the cost of ending the Gaza war.
Now, the Israeli military has said that it would be dismissing pilots from the Air Force who had signed a petition calling for an end to the war in Gaza. The IDF said that the action would be taken in response to a letter signed by around 1,000 reserve and retired pilots and even issued a public statement.
Now, the petition is said to be a direct challenge to the policy of Benjamin Netanyahu. This as the Israeli Prime Minister has been firm in his stand on the Gaza war. Netanyahu has time and again called for increased military pressure on Gaza, which he believes is the only way to get Palestinian militants to release the hostages. Backing the dismissal order, statement by Benjamin Netanyahu has said that statements that weaken the IDF and strengthen our enemies during wartime are unforgivable.
Some 251 people were held captive during Hamas's attack on the 7th of October 2023. While 58 of them are still said to be held in Gaza, 34 of them are believed to be dead as per the Israeli military. In a truce that lasted from January 19th to the 17th of March, it saw the return of some hostages in return for Palestinian prisoners held by Israel. 33 Israeli hostages, including 8 dead, were exchanged for the release of around 1,800 Palestinian prisoners. Now, Iran and the United States are raising stakes ahead of key talks in Oman, with Iran considering imposing an interim nuclear deal before pursuing negotiations.
However, tensions escalated when a senior aide to Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei warned that Iran might expel nuclear inspectors, which the US views as an escalation and miscalculation.
Now, taking to social media platform X, Rear Admiral Ali Shamkhani said that continued external threats and threat of a military attack on Iran could lead to deterrent measures such as ceasing cooperation with the International Atomic Energy Agency, apart from expelling their inspectors. He added that transfer of enriched materials to secure locations may also be considered, referring to the country's uranium enrichment.
Well, reacting to Khamenei's aide comment, US warned the United States against an Iranian misstep ahead of Saturday's talks between both the countries.
First of all, these actions, the threat of that kind of action, of course, is inconsistent with Iran's claims of a peaceful nuclear program, right? Also, expelling IAEA inspectors from Iran would be an escalation and a miscalculation on Iran's part.
Now, Rear Admiral Ali Shamkhani's comments came after Trump failed to rule out military action against Iran in the event the planned talks failed to produce a deal. The US president warned that he won't let Iran obtain a nuclear weapon.
The only thing they can't have is a nuclear weapon. They understand that. You know, the people are so incredible in Iran, and they're so smart. They're very smart people. But, you know, they're in a rough situation, rough regime.
Did you mean military action, though, if they don't agree?
Oh, if necessary? Absolutely, yeah.
Reacting to the upcoming US-Iran nuclear talks in Oman, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio stated that it could lead to peace.
An important meeting, thanks to you, is going to happen on Saturday for the first time in a long time. There'll be direct talks between Ambassador Woodcock and a top-level leader in Iran. We hope that'll lead to peace.
Now, the discussions scheduled for this weekend in Oman will be led by US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi on Tehran's nuclear program.
Meanwhile, the US has deployed a second aircraft carrier, the USS Carl Vinson, to West Asia to support its ongoing air campaign against Iran-backed Houthi rebels. Well, US Central Command said that the USS Carl Vinson, armed with F-35C stealth warplanes, will operate alongside the USS Harry S. Truman in the region. With public anger spilling on the streets, Turkey's Erdogan is facing the biggest challenge to his over 2 decades-long political dominance.
The opposition Republican People's Party is intensifying protests over the arrest of former Istanbul Mayor Ekrem İmamoğlu. Organizing the daily mass protests in Istanbul, CHP Chairman Özgür Özel has called for a series of rallies across Istanbul and Turkey after Turkish authorities arrested the mayor of the Sicily district in their latest action.
We will not stop without getting results. We will not stop before that trustee sent to Sicily by the coup plotters, by the junta members. The Sicily representative of the junta leaves and Resul Emre Sahan returns. We will not stop. We will not stop.
Well, hundreds of youngsters have joined the opposition protests in Istanbul, defying a crackdown by the Turkish authorities. Now, nearly 2,000 people, including many students and journalists, have been detained in what so far has been a peaceful protest. Now, Turkish courts have ordered the release of at least 107 detained students.
İmamoğlu's arrest is part of a larger crackdown on the opposition by the Erdogan government At least 7 elected opposition mayors have been removed from office after Erdogan's ruling party faced a setback in municipal elections held last year. Erdogan's People's Alliance fell to second position with 22 victories, while a collective opposition took control of 45 municipalities.
Trying to capitalize on the anti-Erdogan sentiment, CHP chairman Özal challenged Erdogan to call for early polls and face Ekrem İmamoğlu on the ballot.
İşte bu psikoloji.
Now, as the elections are approaching, the political landscape is heating up in Canada, with war of words between Prime Minister Mark Carney and his conservative rival Pierre Poilievre taking a rather personal turn.
Well, during a news conference, Poilievre gave a piece of advice to the voters. He said they should not think that Carney is any different from Trudeau because he is a banker's haircut and wears a pair of blue socks. He went on to take a pot shot at Carney's private sector experience, which the Liberal leader has touted during the campaign.
Poilievre said Carney is not a businessman but a political grifter in response to a question about his political rival's past business dealings. Carney hit back during a news conference later in the day. He took aim at Poilievre's career as a member of the parliament and contrasted that to his experience working as the head of the Bank of Canada with Stephen Harper's government during the 2008 financial crisis.
His statement came in response to a question about Harper endorsing Poilievre during a rally in Edmonton. Now, Carney mocked Poilievre for not being given any responsibility under Harper during the crisis and even in the subsequent years.
Now, Canada goes to the polls on the 28th of April. The election comes as the country faces a trade war with the United States and calls from President Donald Trump for it to become the 51st American state, issues which are expected to be top of the mind for voters. Longtime allies, the US and Canada, are breaking up, so said Carney in a national television address to Canadian citizens from Parliament Hill last week. However, today, as Trump announced a pause on tariffs yesterday, Carney called it a welcome reprieve and said Ottawa will begin negotiations with Washington on a new economic deal after the elections.
Now, while Carney is campaigning on crime, Poilievre is campaigning on housing in Greater Toronto.
A great Canadian hero, like so many. We're so blessed to have...
Kenya's President William Ruto's government is rattled by a play called Echoes of War, staged by schoolgirls.
Now, the schoolgirls refused to perform at the ongoing 63rd and National Drama Festival after the director of the play was arrested by the police.
High drama began after the police blocked members of the public and the media from accessing the venue where the play was to be staged. A group of girl students went on to stage and sang Kenya's national anthem in defiance, leaving the venue without performing the play. Slogans of "No Butere, No Drama" and "Ruto Must Go" were heard as the girl students were leaving.
The slogans were followed by police crackdown. There was heavy police deployment to ensure no one entered the Kirabon Girls High School.
The police used tear gas to disperse the crowd. The unrest over the play echoes protests over issues like state violence and abduction in the country.
Kenya's former Senator Cleophas Malala, who is also a strong critic of Ruto, has written the play. Malala was arrested a day prior to the play and was released after the incident at the National Drama Festival. All right, in Dubai, Sotheby's unveiled the Philippe Missillier collection, a treasure trove of Islamic arms and armor gathered over 5 decades.
The world capturer sword, once owned by Emperor Shah Jahan, stole the show. Take a look at these images.
All right, with that, it's time now for a short break.
But don't go anywhere. On the other side of World DNA, Mumbai attack suspect Tahawwur Rana has been sent to 18-day NIA custody. The Pakistan-born Canadian citizen Tahawwur Rana will be tried for his role in the deadly 2008 Mumbai siege.
Also on the other side, Tunisia is on the boil with hundreds of Tunisians staging protest rallies against detention of 6 opposition leaders. We'll get you the latest on this on the other side. Stay tuned.
India's Global Voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
This week on the West Asia Post. Tensions over Iran's nuclear program continue to mount. Can US President reach a nuclear deal with Iran the second time around? While Trump reiterates that Gaza war will end soon.
Well, I'd like to see the war stop, and I think the war will stop at some point.
Netanyahu stays non-committal to a permanent ceasefire. Also on the show, we tell you what preconditions Hezbollah has set for disarmament. And opposition's challenge to Turkey's Erdogan. Watch the West Asia Post with me, Redi Francis, every Friday at these times, only on WION, World is One.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
Welcome back to World DNA. Thank you so much for staying with us. Lots lined up for you on this side of the show as well. Let's get started with the headlines first.
India's National Investigation Agency takes 18-day custody of Mumbai attacks mastermind Tahawwur Rana. Agency to question Rana in detail to unravel the complete conspiracy behind the 26/11 terror strike.
Six people, including 3 children, killed in New York after a sightseeing helicopter crashes into the Hudson River.
In another US aviation mishap, an American Airlines plane carrying several members of Congress was struck on the taxiway by the wingtip of another jet at Washington's Reagan National Airport. The passengers were safely evacuated.
An important meeting, thanks to you, is going to happen on Saturday for the first time in a long time. There'll be direct talks between Ambassador Woodcock and a top-level leader in Iran.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says Special Envoy Steve Witkoff to lead talks with Iran on Saturday.
Police in Brazil used tear gas to stop protesters as thousands of indigenous people march in capital Brasilia, demanding state guarantee and expand their rights to traditional lands.
Asia-Pacific market sink as renewed US-China trade tensions triggered a global risk-off wave following Wall Street's sharp sell-off.
Goalkeeper Andrea Onana's errors cost Manchester United a victory. The Red Devils are held to a 2-2 draw by Lyon in first leg of their Europa League quarter-final. Mumbai attack accused Tahawwur Rana has been sent to 18 days NIA custody following his extradition from the United States.
The Pakistan-born Canadian citizen Tahawwur Rana, wanted for his role in the deadly 2008 Mumbai attacks, landed in New Delhi around 6:30 p.m. on Thursday.
Upon arrival on a special plane, he was arrested by the National Investigation Agency and produced before a special NIA judge who held an in-camera hearing on NIA counsel's plea for a 20-day remand. Rana was represented by Delhi Legal Services Authority. After the hearing, the court sent Rana to 18-day NIA custody.
NIA sought 20 days police custody, and after a lot of deliberation, the court said that they've given 18 days police custody, and uske baad he'll be brought back. And if NIA wants more time, then they'll move an application. For medical, they've been told that a comprehensive medical test would be done when he's taken into custody and before he's brought back to court at the end of the remand.
Now, the NIA presented compelling evidence, including emails sent by the 26/11 attacks accused to justify his custody. The probe agency informed the court that the custodial interrogation was crucial to uncovering the sinister plot. The investigators will examine Rana's role in orchestrating the terror attacks, in which a total of 166 persons were killed.
NIA said that Mumbai attack accused number 1 David Coleman Headley had discussed the entire plan of the terror operation with Tahawwur Rana before his visit to India. Anticipating potential challenges, Headley sent an email to Rana detailing his belongings and assets.
He also informed Rana about the involvement of Ilyas Kashmiri and Abdur Rahman in the plot. The NIA will question Rana in detail to unravel the complete conspiracy behind the deadly Mumbai attacks.
Tahawwur Rana was brought to India from Los Angeles, escorted by teams of NSG and NIA. The probe agency secured his extradition from the United States following years of sustained efforts and after the terror suspect's last-ditch effort to get a stay on his extradition from the United States failed.
Now, the extradition came through after Rana's various litigations and appeals, including an emergency application before the US Supreme Court, were rejected.
Now, with the coordinated efforts of India's Ministry of External Affairs and Ministry of Home Affairs, along with the relevant authorities in the United States, the surrender warrant for the wanted suspect was eventually secured and the extradition was carried out. The US State Department reiterated its commitment to combat global terrorism in collaboration with India.
April 9th, the United States extradited Tahawwur Rana to India to face justice for his role in planning the horrific 2008 Mumbai terrorist attacks. These attacks resulted in the tragic loss of 166 lives, including 6 Americans, that shocked the entire world. President Trump has said the United States and India will continue to work together to combat the global scourge of terrorism. So it is, he is in their possession, and we are very proud of that dynamic.
Now, Tunisia is on the boil with hundreds of Tunisians staging protest rallies against the detention of political figures.
6 opposition leaders have begun a hunger strike in jail against what they call muzzling of dissent by President Kais Saied. Now, denying the opposition's allegations, Saied claims that he is establishing one-man rule in the country while defending the detentions as an effort to hold a corrupt elite accountable.
Saied seized extra powers in 2021 when he shut down the elected parliament and moved to rule by decree. He then proceeded to assume authority over the judiciary in 2023, a move the opposition has called a coup. This was after judges acquitted 6 prominent opposition figures on conspiracy charges.
Saied called the detainees traitors and terrorists and described the judges as their accomplices. Now, all the 6 opposition figures are now on a hunger strike in prison to protest against their impending trial. On Wednesday, supporters of the opposition Free Constitutional Party held protests in capital Tunis to demand the release of their detained leader Abir Moussi.
Supporters of another opposition party, the Salvation Front, also staged a separate rally in Tunis to demand the release of detained politicians, activists and journalists. The detainees have said that they are preparing an initiative aimed at uniting Tunisia's fragmented opposition. Most leaders of political parties are now in prison, including 2 of Said's most prominent opponents, Moussi and Rashid Ghannouchi, the head of the Ennahda party.
Pope Francis, who is taking 2 months rest as he recovers from double pneumonia, was seen making a surprise visit to St. Peter's Basilica in casual attire.
The 88-year-old pontiff arrived at the basilica without fanfare in his wheelchair. The Pope was not wearing his traditional white papal vestments, but instead wore a long-sleeved top black trousers. He was wearing a cannula, a plastic tube tucked into the nostrils, to help him breathe, and according to reports, Pope Francis spent about an hour greeting pilgrims and workers engaged in restoration work and also blessed them. Pope Francis then proceeded to the tomb of Pope Pius X to pray before departing back to the Santa Marta guest house where he resides.
Well, this was his second surprise event in 2 days after previously meeting King Charles III and Queen Camilla in an unscheduled private audience. Pope Francis' public appearance comes as he recovers at the Vatican after 5 weeks in hospital.
Now, global stock markets plunged after President Donald Trump announced tariffs last Wednesday, triggering the worst 2-day rout since the height of the pandemic.
Well, according to Bloomberg's Billionaires Index, the world's 500 richest people lost a combined $536 billion within 48 hours. The S&P 500 dropped nearly 20% from its February high. Now, commodities tumbled as well, with oil prices hitting a 4-year low. Trump's tariffs on Asia and EU spooked investors and raised fears of a global recession.
While this threat has been paused for now, several of Trump's billionaire allies have taken the biggest financial hits. Elon Musk saw his net worth plunge by $31 billion in 2 days and is down $130 billion year to date. Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg lost $27 billion after a 14% drop in Meta stock. Jeff Bezos, whose Amazon business relies heavily on imports from Asia, is down $45.2 billion so far in 2025. And French luxury tycoon Bernard Arnault also lost $18.6 billion amid tariffs on Asian garment hubs and a 20% EU levy.
All 4 were either supporters of Trump or attendees at his inauguration. Now, in stark contrast, Warren Buffett has emerged as the only billionaire in the Bloomberg Top 500 to gain wealth this year. Despite a $2.57 billion loss during the market crash, his net worth is up $12.7 billion in 2025. Buffett had strategically sold off major holdings in Apple, Bank of America and ETFs, choosing to hoard cash in anticipation of a downturn.
Berkshire Hathaway shares dropped 2%, a relatively stable performance. While Trump's tariff roiled global markets, Buffett's cautionary approach appears to be paying off.
Tensions between the US and China are rising as Beijing issues travel warnings to its citizens amid a deepening trade dispute.
This move could cost the US billions in lost revenue from Chinese students and tourists. We will break down how this growing rift might impact American businesses and universities. Take a look at our next report.
China has issued warnings to its citizens regarding travel to the United States, signaling increasing tensions between the two countries amid escalating trade conflicts. The Chinese Ministry of Culture and Tourism cautioned its citizens to assess the risks of traveling to the US due to deteriorating economic relations and the domestic security situation. This warning follows Beijing's decision to impose tariff on all American imports, retaliating against similar US tariff hikes. These trade measures threaten to disrupt the long-standing economic ties between the two largest global economies. In addition, the Chinese Ministry of Education issued a separate warning to students, urging caution regarding educational exchanges in light of new legislation in Ohio. The bill, which restricts cooperation between US and Chinese universities, targets perceived foreign influence and has already led to concerns among Chinese students considering study opportunities in the US. The implications of these warnings could be significant for the US economy. Chinese tourists and students have long been major contributors to American industries, particularly in education and tourism. In 2023, China was the second largest source of international students, following India. This shift has already started to impact US universities, as the number of Chinese students has declined since 2019. The US is at risk of losing billions of dollars in revenue from these sectors, as Chinese tourists and students collectively contribute approximately $45 billion annually to the US economy. Should these trends continue, the financial impact on US universities, hospitality, and retail industries could be substantial. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Now, heavy drinkers are at an increased risk of a type of brain injury linked with memory and thinking problems.
This according to a new study published in the journal Neurology. The researchers studied individuals who had an average age of 75 at the time of death. All had brain autopsies. The participants were divided into 4 groups: those who never drank, those who had 7 or fewer drinks weekly, those who had 8 or more drinks weekly, which was defined as heavy drinking, and former heavy drinkers who stopped drinking.
Now, researchers define one drink as having 14 grams of alcohol. That's about 350 ml of beer, 150 ml of wine, or 45 ml of distilled spirits. Heavy drinkers had a whopping 133% a higher likelihood of having highly arterial or cirrhosis compared with non-drinkers, and that's after accounting for other factors that could affect brain, such as smoking.
Former drinkers had 89% higher odds of developing the lesion, and moderate drinkers had 60% higher odds. Haline arteriolocirrhosis is a condition that causes the small blood vessel to narrow, becoming thick and stiff. Now, this makes it harder for blood to flow, which can damage the brain over time. It appears as lesions, areas of damaged tissues in the brain.
Researchers also found that heavy drinkers died an average of 13 years earlier than those who never drank.
And the first major of the year, the Masters, is underway at Augusta National.
Justin Rose had made an early statement by nearly matching the course record in the opening round. The 2013 US Open champion holds a 3-shot lead atop the leaderboard, with defending champion Scottie Scheffler among the trio in hot pursuit.
The 89th edition of the Masters opened in picture-perfect conditions. Former world #1 Rose is no stranger to this course, having finished runner-up twice since his debut in 2003. The Briton made a fast start with 3 early birdies, but wayward drives on 17th and 18th left him in the trees. Still, he scrambled well to save par on both holes. However, that wasn't the case on the last hole as he closed the day with a bogey, but still emerged as the first round Masters leader for a 5th time by carding a 7 under 65.
I feel like I've played well enough to win this tournament. I just feel like I don't have the jacket to prove it. I feel like, no, it's a compliment. You know, I've played a lot of good rounds of golf here. I've got a lot of crystal, which is obviously always nice. But yeah, you know, ultimately you want to be last man standing on Sunday.
Rose has never converted a first-round lead into a green jacket, and he'll need to be wary of the chasing pack. World #1 Scotty Scheffler, last year's runner-up Ludwig Hebert, and Canada's Corey Connors sit tied for the second. Scheffler was clinical, produced a flawless bogey-free 4 under 68. The American is aiming to join Jack Nicklaus, Nick Faldo, and Tiger Woods as the only players to win back-to-back Masters titles.
I think anytime you get closer to the lead, it's going to be easier for you to win the golf tournament. That's just, a simple fact of the matter. You get off to a good start. Statistically, you're going to have a better chance to win the tournament. And so I think around major championship golf courses too, it's funny because this is a golf course where there's a lot of opportunities.
Rory McIlroy is also chasing history at Augusta. The 4-time major winner began his last bid to complete his career Grand Slam on a positive note.